growth, corporate entities are increasingly becoming the mode of economic and commercial activities in India. India has become a preferred destination for international investments. The corporate sector is fast emerging as a major contributor to the building of India's brand equity. Bearing this in mind, there was a need for establishing a legal framework that would foster a positive environment for investment and growth while ensuring that the Indian corporate sector is able to operate in an environment of globally competitive international practices. The laws prescribing the framework need to be compact and easy to interpret to enable regulatory institutions to respond quickly and effectively to meet requirements of the dynamic nature of the today's business model and economic environments. The Ministry of Corporate Affairs has to partner with the stakeholders for this purpose and has to increase its capability for catering to the emerging needs of the corporate for their regulation, growth and development. Keeping this in mind, the new Companies Act 2013 has been introduced after lots of deliberation and delays. The young and dynamic corporate and law minister, Shri Sachin Pilot, has introduced many new concepts such as one-person company, compulsory women director, corporate social responsibility, etc. There are many other changes which throw open opportunity to we professionals such as compulsory independent director, even in unlisted companies, CSR valuations, etc. The Chamber has appreciated the need to have a workshop on the Companies Act and arrange the same with the purpose to learn the important aspects of the Companies Act and be ready to face the challenges coming in a day-to-day practice as well as operation. I, on behalf of the Chamber, thank all the participants for an overwhelming response and also apologize to those who could not be accommodated. I also congratulate the committee for meticulous design and arranging for the best of the speakers. I will now request Vipul Bhai to take the proceedings forward. Thank you.
Thank you, President. Dr. Israni, President Yatin, Secretary Hitesh, Kaushik, the Coordinator, Alexio, past Presidents of Chamber, respected Sri Arvind Dalal, the past President of ICI, and inspiration for all of us. At the age of 86, he is attending this workshop. My colleagues in the council and ladies and gentlemen, it gives me immense pleasure in welcoming you all to this workshop on Companies Act. We all know how important it is because 98 sections have been notified and we don't know when the other sections are going to be notified, and it's expected that they are going to be notified by 1st April 2014. And I think it's the right time that we have a workshop and understand. Actually, Companies Act itself is a very vast subject, and we can't really study section wise all the sections of Companies Act, but nevertheless I think we have designed the course in such a way that all the relevant aspects, important aspects which are relevant for our practice are covered. And we have some of the best speakers, who would be dealing with the subject, and we can't have a better person than Dr. Israni to, start the session. Dr. Kumbal, who is the regional director, was to inaugurate this workshop, but he was summoned by the ministry at Delhi, maybe to, in connection with Companies Act only, so he could make it. Coming to the Companies Act, I think we all have to now become students because we can't have just basic knowledge of Companies Act because it's something which we need to deal with on day-to-day basis. We all have studied Companies Act. I was just thinking of Arvind Bhai, when he passed, he was dealing with Companies Act 1913. Am I right, sir? So 1930, 1956 and 2013. So 3 acts he would be studying. Well, sir, friends, coming to the course, as I said, we have organized some of the best speakers. Mr. Himanshu Kisnadwala, the next speaker, is also one of the authority on accounting standards and related corporate related topics. Coming to the corporate members committee, the corporate members committee was started when Mr. Bhaveshwara was the president in the year 2007-8. The idea of corporate member committee was to have programs which are largely relevant for members in industry which are concerning them. And one other good thing about this committee that we are generally the first in organizing the program which are relevant for corporate members, be it SB, Herald, be it SIB listing, be it M&A, be it raising of finance, companies at revised Schedule 6. And the companies will also, I think we had a very successful lecture meeting where Mr. Bharat Pasani of Tata was the speaker. Even though it's a program of corporate members committee, the 90% of participants are practicing chartered accountant, rightly so, because they also need to learn. But I would suggest all the members who are attending this workshop that please, request your friends who are in industry to become a member of chamber, and they would definitely be benefited because they will also get a platform to have networking with their peers. With these opening remarks, I welcome you all and wish you all a very happy learning experience. And I also welcome Dr. Israni and thank you very much, sir, for making it. And may I now request Kaushik Bhai to formally introduce Dr. Israni.
Good afternoon. It is my great pleasure to introduce Dr. S.D. Israni. Dr. S.D. Israni is qualified in the field of law, company secretaryship and management and has over 40 years of experience as a practitioner in the field of corporate laws and business advisory services. Dr. Israni started his practice in the chamber of late Sri D.M. Harish, a renowned tax advocate. Dr. Israni is founder and senior partner of S.D. Israni Law Chambers, Advocates and Solicitors, UK. Dr. Israni has been member of Selection Committee and Independent Oversight Committee of the Governing Board for Listing Function of Interconnected Stock Exchange of India Limited. He is also member of the Expert Advisory Board of the ICSI. He is also member of the Management Committee of Center for Corporate Governance Research and Training, CCJRT of ICSI. Dr. Israni is former member of SEBI's Committee on Disclosure, that is Malegaon Committee, Central Council member of ICSI for 4 terms, Naresh Chandra Committee for Simplification of Law Relating to Private Companies, SEBI's Committee on Buyback of Shares, several committees of the Central Council of ICSI, IMC's Task Force on Company Law Advisory Committee of MCA Western Region. Dr. S.D. Israni has been former chairman of Capital Market Committee of the ICSI, CCRT Management Committee of the ICSI, organizing subcommittee of National Convention of ICSI in the year 1996. Dr. S.D. Israni is independent director of Sidmark Laboratories India Private Limited and also former PR director of Interconnected Stock Exchange of India Limited. Dr. Israni is trustee in Investor Protection Fund of NCDX, that is National Commodity and Derivative Exchange, also Asian Heart Institute Charitable Trust and Bensimal Galwani Charitable Trust. He is a founder member of Executive Committee member of the Society of Insolvency Practitioners of India, affiliated to Insol International. As speaker and author, he has presented papers and regular speaker at various seminars and conferences, workshops and conventions organized by various professional bodies and Chamber of Commerce in India and abroad. He has been co-author of 6 books and hundreds of articles published in leading economic dailies and professional journals. On Chamber membership, he is a nominated member of the Managing Committee of IMC, also Legal Affairs Committee of IMC, life member of Indian Council of Arbitration, and he was a former member of Legal Affairs Committee of the Bombay Chamber of Commerce and Industry. On social fund, he has been co-chairman of Bhavishyayan Committee of RC of Bombay, past honorary secretary of Rotary Club of Bombay and Rotary Club of Bombay South, winner of several Rotary Awards for vocational and club service. He is a life member of Darwari Clubhouse and NSCI, life member of Photographic Society of India, former probation officer of Children's Aid Societies, Children's Remand Home, Umarkhedi, Mumbai. Friends, I have occasion to and opportunity to meet, to know him over last 2 decades, and his entire family is into profession. With this introduction, On behalf of Chamber and all of us, I welcome Dr. S.D. Israni. And I request President Yatin Desai to offer a moment on behalf of all of us.
Good afternoon, friends. Mr. Yatin, Mr. Vipul, Kaushik, Hitesh, and my fellow professional friends. Friends, at the outset, let me thank the Chamber for giving me this opportunity. And I deem it my privilege that today we are eminent professional like Arvind Bhai. I don't know whether he remembers. Many years back, Bombay Chartered Accountant Society had invited me, and he especially came for that program. He told me that I come because of you, and I deem it my double honor that today again at his age he has still come over, and I think that gives a lesson to all of us that there is no age at which we can say that we have learned everything or we know everything, because there is no end to knowledge. And I personally also believe that what we know is yesterday, today is a different day, and we have to learn again. And here I see many friends, and particularly Rajnikant Bhai and others. It is nice to meet many friends after a long time. Now friends, first of all, let me be frank with you, because this introduction which Kaushik Bhai kindly read out should not mislead you into believing that I am some kind of an expert on this subject, at least not on this Act 2013. I am here before you as a student, just sharing some thoughts from whatever little I understood till now, because we have to do a lot of more understanding of the subject and the manner in which the government has been going about implementing this Act. Perhaps we will have to have many more seminars, perhaps the Chamber will have to have from time to time. Now, the theme of the afternoon, so far as I am concerned, is an overview with specific reference to National Company Law Tribunal, Appellate Tribunal. Frankly, this is a subject where even a full day or 2-day discussion may not be enough. Therefore, broadly what I will be doing is, I will take you through some of the important provisions, and I would request all of you that don't treat this as a monologue, and I will definitely be happy to be interrupted at any stage. If you have any doubts, you would like to discuss anything, or you would like to offer a view, you would like to share a thought, please feel free at any stage, and you need not wait till I complete my presentation, because perhaps by that time I may be in a rush to leave. So it is better that throughout it should be there, and if I indulge in a monologue, then perhaps I will have more sleepy people than others who would be interested in listening. So let us start at the beginning. I thought, let me have this quote before you. Law should be like clothes, they should be made to fit the people they are meant to serve. But imagine if you have gone to the tailor in 2008 and then you go for trial in 2009 and second trial in 2011, delivery you take in 2012, what will be the fitting of that? Something like this has been happening with our company law. And this is the bill which finally became an act in 2013. But prior to that, many of you would recall that in the last 2 decades, twice the government came close to replacing this act, and both the times elections were announced and government went out of office, Lok Sabha was dissolved and the bills fell through. This time also there was serious doubt whether this will come through or again Lok Sabha elections will come forward. Fortunately, it did not happen and the bill has gone through, it has become an act. As we all know, Companies Act 1956 was one of the biggest in terms of number of sections, the legislation almost 700 sections. Now we are told there are 470 sections. Friends, in effect, if you really see, it is not so, for two reasons. First of all, even in the Companies Act 1956, many of the sections were already repealed. Though the number survived, but the provision was no more there. So effective sections were lower than 700. And secondly, in the new Act, although it is called 470, but many of the sections have been combined. And therefore, in number it may appear to be less, but the provisions are similar. So it is not exactly 470, it is much more. But when you look into the rules, 331 places in the Act it says, as may be prescribed. And as may be prescribed is not a single line which has been prescribed. Sometimes the rule runs into paragraphs and pages. So you have multiple rules. So effectively 470 sections and 330 rules minimum, which on an average there are 2 or 3, we are again looking at 700-800 provisions. At least in 1956 Act, we knew we had to just look into the Act, only the sections. But now we have to keep track of the rules. And rules, these can be like central exercise rules, circular in the morning and clarification in the afternoon. Now that will be the fear, that we don't know today morning forms keep on changing, but now the rules also may keep on changing, we wouldn't know. So every day morning we'll have to see this also, or night before going to sleep, ensure that the rules have not been changed, because suddenly a surprise may come, because every time they may not be putting up on the site for inviting suggestions. So in the process of simplification, we may face a degree of complication, and then we keep on trying to understand the implication. But then that is how it has been our legal process, and we have to manage with what we have. So eventually on 29th August 2013, the assent was given. Now here also, see the ham-handedness of the government. What was the hurry for notifying 98 sections? Was the heaven going to fall? Heavens would have fallen if they would not have notified? Nothing of the sort. And today what we are left with doing, 98 sections of the new Act we have to reconcile with the existing law itself. And there again some of the sections where some subsections are not being notified. Section itself is notified, but a subsection is not notified. I don't know why the tearing hurry. And then last week we had section 135, CSR, corporate social responsibility, has been notified, which will be effective from 1st of April, which will come to little later. It would have been prudent that entire Act would have been notified at one go, so that we as professionals knew that we have to deal with the new law at one go, rather than, of course, in any case, always we would have been comparing, because we cannot escape comparing the earlier provisions, not only for academic reasons, but even for practical and legal issues which would be involved. Now, what is the philosophy broadly behind this 2013 Act? In my view, because for last several years there have been demand from the chambers as well as from professionals that there should be greater stress towards self-regulation, that corporate sector should be left to manage its own affairs subject to professional oversight, so that there should be increasing role for professionals to play, there will be greater certification to be done by them, and businessmen should be able to manage their own business, and that would be possible when there are greater disclosures and greater transparency and more accountability. And if you see under 2013 Act, that is the direction, that is the approach which has been there. Greater role which chartered accountants, company secretaries, cost accountants have to play. And the responsibility has been shifted from the government to the shareholders. Like simple example, related party transactions or contracts were under section 297 under the 1956 Act, where companies having more than 1 crore capital had to go to central government for approval. That now the power has been given to the shareholders. So to that extent, now it is the shareholders who are the final authority, subject of course certain checks and balances. It is but natural, if more power is given, there have to be certain checks and balances to ensure that again the power is not misused. Now, what are the important changes that have taken place? I may not be covering each and every change that is there in the Act, but I will try to take you through some of the most important changes. One person company. Now, this has been a demand for quite some time, that in the Western countries it is there. Of course, some people have raised the question, why one person company, how does it help? Particularly now we are in a technology age, new technologies are developing. Many individuals have their own startups, they are creating. There are people who are willing to fund, but they don't want to take the risk. They don't want to become partner. At the same time, individual wants freedom. He wants finance, but at the same time freedom for what he wants to pursue. A company like one person company, which is a legal entity, which has a character of its own, which will be able to create charge on the assets of its company, and at the same time have the freedom of a proprietary concern. So that the individual can manage the business the way he or she wants, but at the same time it is possible to avail of the funding, finances, and for the lender it is possible to have security without too much of a hassle. So it is one more option, whether one uses or does not use. It's like LLP. Now, this was also, when I was a member of the Nareshchandra committee, issue discussed that government should give more options, then let the citizens decide what they want to do. It is not necessary that you have to give option only when there are many people who are interested. Give option and then people will find their own interest and need, and accordingly this has been brought on statute. This is an interesting concept, dormant company. Now the law permits, as we all know as professionals, as chartered accountants, many times promoters, they go for 10, 20, 50 companies for certain activities. Things don't work out sometimes. A company formed for a future project or to hold an asset or intellectual property and has no significant accounting transaction, or an inactive company may make an application to the registrar of obtaining the status of a dormant company. Under the 1956 Act, the rule is if you are a dormant company, registrar has power to serve a notice under section 560 and strike off the name of the company, or show cause notice issued why your name should not be struck off. Here it is other way around, that on the one hand it gives you opportunity, that you know for some reason, for the time being, company is inactive, or you created for a particular project did not succeed, and but you are still looking for some other project, you don't want to wind up the company or have it struck off, then you can apply for dormant company. Compliances will be simplified, obligations will be minimal, and you don't have to worry much. So this is a practical thing which the government has brought on statute, and I am sure many of many promoters will be able to take advantage, and many of us recall when different kinds of booms come, when there was the tech boom in 2000, or once upon a time there was a mini cement boom, construction boom. Suddenly hundreds of companies or thousands of companies in that particular activity with that as a main object are created, and then several of them remain dormant. Today such a company can take advantage, or you are merely holding assets, kind of a holding company holding assets or intellectual property, which is a very important asset today, and you may need a company for that, for your tax planning or otherwise future estate planning. That should be possible. Small company. Now this has again arisen out of a suggestion given by the Nareshchandra committee. There the discussion was the difference between a private company, public company, unlisted public company and listed companies. So the idea was that one who goes for public company listed should have maximum obligations because they are going to take public funds. Unlisted public company, because the promoter is voluntarily going for a public company. So there also accountability and disclosure should be more. Then it was thought that in case of private company, there are again companies which are although technically private, but really very small companies. They become private due to various reasons. So there was a recommendation that after all the discussion, that let there be a separate category